Sources of power in tennis, okay? This is kind of what we're all striving for. You want to be able to hit the ball hard, but you also want to be able to hit the ball in and control it and then back it up with power. So there's really a priority of control, then power, versus power, then control, okay? To learn this, you want to be able to hit the ball hard and practice, but you'll eventually practice hitting hard and then hitting it in, okay? So this is how you learn racket speed and all these things I'm going to talk about. So sources of power, what you want to think about is, well, what do I have to use to my advantage, okay? Well, I've got gravity, okay? Gravity is the first thing I'm going to talk about, pulling me down back onto the earth, okay? So as I start with my racket, why we prepare with a racket that is high, okay, and where a lot of players will get caught if they prepare low, say, with the racket face, not up above my wrist, no matter where you are, that loses the power that gravity is going to help you achieve, right? So you not only have your own body's impact on what the racket does, but the forces around you pulling the racket down. So as that racket starts to drop, right, if I just use gravity to my advantage here, as my racket drops, it obviously accelerates. I'm not putting any effort into this racket, but same thing, even if I hold it in 2 fingers, as it gets lower, it starts to swing faster, okay? So I'm using gravity to my advantage. On the forehand, it starts high, then as it drops, now my butt of the racket is facing forwards, and now I can really muscle the ball. I can create a whipping motion with my body. So I'm using gravity. That's the first thing. I'm up above my wrists, okay? Even if I start like the Leighton Hewitt take back, okay, preparation. Hewitt's coach coached me once, and the same thing applies. He was teaching me this pull back backhand, and it actually feels good, but you've got to get to here, all right? It doesn't matter how the racket goes back. You can be more efficient. There's time-saving ways to do it, but your racket has to end up high. So Leighton comes back here and starts up here to begin his shot. So it doesn't really matter if you've got time, if you've prepared, use gravity to your advantage. That's number one, where now we can whip through. What I want you guys to try and create is, just with this to practice, is start high and create a whip, okay? Without anything else, just think whip. How do I create whip, all right? I'm able to make that swooshing sound through the air if I use my racket. If it starts here and drops, much easier than with my muscles, okay? So you don't want to muscle the ball, you want to use technique to your advantage, okay? That's how, you know, people who are a stick figure can have a massive amount of power because they've got great technique. Number two, I mentioned my body, right? Well, yeah, I can get power from my body. What I've got to do is use technique and use my body efficiently. So let's talk about what my hand and the role my body plays on my racket now. So like I've said, it starts high, comes down. What you notice is the butt of the racket passes through first. So if I go simply like this, like a lot of kids will learn to hit a simple contact, well, I'm not creating racket speed. So my body now wants to be low, and my wrist is cocked back here. So as the racket starts to drop, now this is where this heavy, fast motion comes and is applied. It doesn't matter if you're Rafa or you're Bernard Tomic. It's the same concept, that both of them have very different forehands, but the racket is pulled through first and creates acceleration through the head. How much spin you get is going to be determined by how fast and how upwards the end of the racket actually passes. So if you're coming up like this, that's a lot of spin. More forwards, less spin, okay? More slappy, more power. Less slappy, more muscle, less power, okay? So you're trying to use your body, pull the racket through first, and then accelerate the end of the racket. Now, what's another one? Well, ground reaction force, okay? In biomechanics, they teach you how your body's going to work through all different chain of reactions. So then now you can create power from the ground and put it into the end of the racket, okay? So this is the last thing that gets all the power. My legs here, an old coach of mine, another one, used to say, tennis is legs. He's exactly right. I've done a video about this already. You're using your legs to create power and really push through the ground. So now you can push into your shot and create more power into it. Just as if you were pushing a heavy object. You're pushing an object and you're using your legs from the ground. All the weight goes through into your arms, okay, to the end result. So you're using the ground, you're using gravity, you're using your body, okay, you're pushing and you're uncoiling, okay. This energy, it's elastic energy. You're pushing through, rotating with the hips, staying on the ball somewhat. You're not rotating too much. You'll create power, okay? But for good technique, you want to stay somewhat on the ball. So you're like Roger, right? You're watching the ball as you hit, trying to track that ball. Even if you're off slightly early, boom, it doesn't really matter. You're going to still hit a powerful shot. Okay, so we've covered using the legs, loading from the ground and pushing into the ball, okay? So I'm pushing forwards like I was moving a heavy object. And finally, I've got torque, okay? I've got rotational power, okay? So if I'm rotating more, you notice how I can uncoil and create a lot of power. Whether the ball goes in and out right now, I'm not worried about. But if you watch Madison Keys or Robin Soderling, they're starting more behind here and they've got that big slap fast forehand, okay? So this might create issues as far as control goes, but if you've got good control, you can get a lot of power, similar to how a baseball would begin. They're beginning behind the head and really cranking that ball, Babe Ruth style, out of the stadium. Okay, so you want to put all these elements together. You know, if you think about each one, you've got your racket up, you've got gravity, you've got your body coiled, your weight is back, right? So you can start back and push into the ground, using that ground reaction force, accelerating with your arms and using that racket speed. But the final one, and the one that's often overlooked, is how's the ball coming to me? More power in the ball, your opponent has actually helped you out. They've created power for you. So the faster it comes to you, the less you and your body need to do to create power yourself. Okay, this is why a lot of players struggle on a slower ball, because creating power, especially at a junior age and level, is very, very difficult. Okay, the players as they grow up, their bodies aren't fully developed, they're not as strong, they can't create power, they're not technically proficient yet to do this. So this one's really for you guys. As the ball comes faster, I might go a little bit smaller with my swing, right? I've got more acceleration the bigger I go. I've got less acceleration the smaller I go. But because the ball's faster, I've got less time. So maybe I go small. I don't need to create so much power because my opponent's done some of that for me. So if you're really ready with your feet and you can react and adapt your shot, because we don't just have one shot that's all we ever hit. The ball's in different locations, different speeds, different places. So you've got to move and adjust a little bit to how high the ball is, etc. But use those concepts that if you applied all those concepts I mentioned about creating power into a really fast ball and you time it well, because the key is timing it, right? We want to still have it out in front. If you're able to time it well, then you get a cranked ball that's just absolutely powerful, and that's the time when you start hitting Agassi-style winners, okay? If you're ready, you can do that. My advice is really shorten up a little bit and control that power, use their pace so you don't get too much, okay? Once you get too much power, the ball starts going all over the place, it's wild. That's where you've got to take it down a notch and use their power against them. Hopefully that helps you guys. Let me know if you have any questions and have fun creating power on your own.